Welcome to the Dice Gods, my name is Hydra, and today we're going to be taking a detailed look at the newly released Bulge British late war book for Flames of War. We'll be looking at this latest release from Battlefront Miniatures to see whether it's been worth the 2.5-year wait for an update for the British forces. But before all that, this preview of the book was kindly supplied by channel supporter tabletopper.nl. Tabletopper is one of Europe's leading suppliers of wargaming miniatures, rules and consumables, serving the community across the world. With a huge range of items in stock, making them our go-to source for Flames of War, Bolt Action, Infinity, The Drowned Earth and Games Workshop products. Head on over to tabletopper.nl to take a look at the pre-orders for this book and all the goodies inside today. If you enjoy what we're doing on the Dice Gods channel, please consider joining us on Patreon for exclusive videos, extras, and some exclusive discounts on wargaming goodies coming soon. But for now, to the main event. If you're a British player in Flames of War, it's been a while since you've had new toys. In fact, the last release for late war Brits was in early 2020, so this book better just be our cup of tea, or by George, there just might be a kerfuffle, and we may even become cross. There, I've said it. You're on warning, Battlefront. Thankfully, there shall be no need for any argy-bargy, 'cause call blimey and strike a light, Governor, if they ain't half done a good 'un with this book. Okay, enough dodgy English accents. My own is quite bad enough. Bulge British is a well-rounded book with a lot of different viable builds which play very distinctly and give you a great deal of options on how you can field British forces. There are options in here for veterans and newbies alike, with some great flavour from the theatres of war. And that's the first thing to note. While this book declares itself to be covering the Battle of the Bulge, also known as the Ardennes Offensive, which took place in Belgium from December 1944 to January the following year, this book also includes forces and background on Operation Market Garden. Market Garden took place in the Netherlands from the 17th to the 25th of September 1944. This combination of the two actions enables Battlefront to include a greater variety of formations for you to field, bringing greater value to the book and more flexibility to the forces you can run. Does this mean that some units or formations that the more historically adept might like to see are missing? Yes, it does, and that leads to a whole discussion about whether the current version of Flames of War is sacrificing historical accuracy and depth on the altar of wider appeal and accessibility, which is not a particular landmine we're going to tread on today. But if you are looking for a masterclass in historical storytelling and reenactment, this may play a little fast and loose with details, so be prepared for that going in. Let's start with what's not new in this book. Returning goodies to this book include the Cromwell, Churchill, Sherman Firefly, artillery of varying weights and measures, lots of flavours of infantry and aircraft. All of these will be familiar from the D-Day book if you have it. Granted, they're all a little tatty around the edges from their exploits, but they're present and ready to roll. But now we come to the fun stuff. As ever, a new book is a great excuse for Battlefront to unleash a new set of plastics upon us, and we weren't disappointed with Bulge British. Our favourites from this new book include the Comet Heavy Cruiser Tank, Challenger Anti-Tank Cruiser, the Canadian Ram, Land Mattress Artillery, which is as bonkers as it sounds, and the Archer Anti-Tank Troop with a gun so big it fires backwards. The option to bring a Panther, yes, that Panther, and the Ram Kangaroo are also welcome. As ever, we'll start our dive with the place you'll start building your force in Flames of War. The formations. For the newbies amongst us, when you're making an army in Flames of War, you'll need to choose a formation. A formation is a defined group of troops which forms the heart of your force. There are 10 different formations in this book. 6 are based around tanks or armour, and 4 are infantry. Currently, most games of Flames of War version 4 are about 100 points, so that's a good thing to keep in mind as we look at the options you have in the book. Points value for each unit depend on its offensive ability, so weaponry, defensive ability, so armour or save, special abilities, and the key statistics of hit on, motivation, and skill. The better these are, the more the unit costs. Those key statistics are really important. We're going to highlight where each is here, but when discussing them later we won't be. So if you're not familiar with Flames of War stat cards, pay attention to this bit for just a moment. As the name implies, hit on says what an enemy needs to roll above to score a hit on your unit. The lower that this value is, the easier that they are hit on and the worse news it is. Motivation is used to decide if your troops will counterattack in close combat, can shake off being attacked, or if they will run away when things get nasty. You'll need to roll over this value to stop things going bad, so in this case, the lower the number, the better. Likewise with skill, this is another lower the better stat. Skill is used when a unit wishes to follow an order, so having a lower skill value can give you a lot more tactical flexibility, including letting you move without counting as having done so. When moving, a tank can halve the number of shots you can make, so passing a skill check can literally double your offensive output. Cross-check skill is also really important for vehicles as it's used for completing tests to move through difficult terrain like trees or bocage. You'll need to roll over this value to have your guys keep moving, so cross-checks can make all the difference between the success or failure of an attack. The last thing to know is that in a formation you'll find 3 or 4 groups of black box options and a range of grey ones. To field a formation you must take one option from each black box and then you may take one from each grey box. With us so far? Great. So for this trusty Cromwell Armoured Squadron you must take the Cromwell Armoured Squadron HQ, then you must take one Cromwell Armoured Troop, then you must take either an extra Cromwell Armoured Troop or a Chaffee Recce Patrol or a Stuart Recce Patrol. Once you have one option from each of these 3 black boxes, you may then take any from the grey boxes. So then up to 2 more Cromwell troops, another Chaffee Troop, Stuarts or Dingo Patrol, then a Crusader AA Troop. An easy way to lose Flames of War is to lose most of your formation. When you're down to the last few units of a formation, they can just run away. So having a larger formation with more grey options makes your army more durable in game. So avoid just taking bare bones formations in your army. You can have, however, more than one formation, but once you have at least one valid formation, you may take support options from the book. We will cover army building and composition in a later video, but for now, that gives you an idea of the core concepts. When we're looking at the formations in this book, we will reference minimum sized formations with the total points cost. These are formations where we take the smallest possible HQ and combat units and the cheapest options in each black box to make the cheapest possible valid formation. This gives a guide to what it will cost to field those units and is intended as a comparison between different formations only. So, let's get into the good stuff. First on the menu is the mighty Comet Armoured Squadron tank formation. These bad boys are new for this book and it might just be love. First the formation. Black boxes are the Comet HQ, Comet Armoured Troop, then an additional Comet Armoured Troop or Chaffee Recce Patrol or Stuart Recce Patrol. From there, your grey boxes are up to 2 more Comet Armoured Troops, then either a Chaffee Recce Patrol or Stuart Recce Patrol or Dingo Recce Patrol, with an optional Crusader AA Troop to round this formation out. The minimum size formation with Stuarts will come in at 41 points for 8 tanks, but as you're about to see, this is not bad. You see, the Comet is arguably the pinnacle of the cruiser tank concept, so you're looking at a mix of light tank speed, medium tank armour and a heavy tank gun. The cruiser tank is a concept that the British have been working on for some time at this point, so the Comet being the pinnacle of this development is something special. Let's check out those stats. For the dice rolls, your Comets are confident motivation on a 4+, but with a tasty remount of 3+ due to protected ammo. Their skill tests are 4+, so fairly average, and they head on 4+, which is nice, and have a cross check of 3+. This makes them fairly reliable when it comes to mobility and jumping back into the tanks. To the fixed stats, their front armour of 7 and side of 5 won't stop the German big cats, but will challenge the Panzer IV and lighter weapons. The Comet's tactical speed of 12 inches is great, especially with the terrain dash of 14 inches, cross country of 24 inch and road dash of 28 inch. The Comet really does live up to its name. So picture the scene. You're bombing across the battlefield, destination Jerry's front garden. But what will you do once you get there? Well, fire the big hoofing gun on the front of your tank, of course. 36-inch range with AT-14, 3+ firepower and smoke. It's a monster which will absolutely ruin a big cat's day if you catch them in the side or back. They also bring some MGs to the field too, each with 4 shots moving or halted, so they can put the hurt on infantry and light vehicles as well. Coming in troops of 3 or 4 with points of 21 or 28 for each respectively. They're not insanely costed either for what they do. The HQ also comes with the Cromwell CS, which has an option to complete a smoke bombardment, artillery attack or direct fire, which has some kick to it, so there are worse ways to spend your points. The other non-Comet options in the formation have pretty much the same rollable stats, though the little Stuart has a lower counterattack, last stand, and assault rating, and lacks the bonus to remount. However, the Stuart does bring Spearhead, which does allow you to complete some deployment mischief. See, with Spearhead, it lets the Stuart deploy further up the field and make a bubble which other units can deploy into. Great if you have slow movers along for the ride or shorter range gear. As a side note, remember these support options because you're going to see them a lot. The Dingo is also a nice addition, giving the formation access again to the Spearhead rule for less than the Stuart if you need to save points but not flexibility. The Crusader AA option is fine with the speed and flexibility to move around the board with the rest of the force and some OK AA. For 3 points they're not awful and do pad out your formation, but there are certainly better options for your points out there unless you face a lot of aircraft, but even then. The next formation in the book is the Hussars Armoured Squadron. I promise I won't keep saying it like that. This is another tank squadron, but this time based around the Cromwell. The Cromwell is a sturdy beast, sharing the same rollable stats as the Comet, so the 4+ motivation, 3+ remount, hidden a 4+, 4+ for the skill, and 3+ for your cross check. Speed is the same 12-inch tactical, but a little faster on the terrain dash at 16 inches and 28 inches on the cross-country dash, with the road dash making it to 32 inches. Not a nice surprise if you can pull a big old sweeping advance like that. Armour is 6 up front, 4 on the side, and the 75mm gun version has AT-10, 3+ firepower, smoke option, and 28-inch range, plus the same 4-shot MG that you saw in the Comet. So the Cromwells are great, but you can see why 3 Cromwells is 6 points cheaper than 3 Comets. The HQ is the same mix of Cromwell and Cromwell CSs, which we saw with the Comets, but it's in the first black box that the world gets a little bit different. Here is where we see the first appearance of the Challenger anti-tank cruiser tank. The Challenger is almost the same as the Cromwell. Same skills, same armour, a worse cross-check at 4+, and slightly slower on cross-country and road dash, but look at that turret! In there is a 17-pounder. That equates to a 36-inch 2-shot halted AT-15 firepower 3+ boomstick. Now, it loses the smoke and the HE of the Cromwell, but that AT-15 isn't to be sniffed at. Would it make a difference in game? Well, shooting the front armour of a Jagd Panther with a Comet is a bailed out on a 5, saved on a 6, destroyed on anything else. With the Challenger, a 6 is bailed out, everything else, Panther goes pop. When you consider that a Comet troop is the same points as a Challenger troop, I think that the Comet is always going to win for the flexibility, speed, cross-check, smoke and extra armour, but the Challenger does have its place. If you like this formation, you can add in the same Dingo Recce Patrol, Crusader AA, and an extra Challenger troop and Cromwell troop if you'd like. Minimum size on this formation will set you back 46 points for 8 tanks in total. Next on the list, the Cromwell Armoured Squadron. This is almost the same as the Comet Armoured Squadron in the composition of the black and grey boxes, seeing the welcome return of the Chaffee, Dingo and Stuart to give you cheap options. Stats for the Cromwell remain the same as the Hussars, damn it, sorry, but it's in the troop composition that things get a little screwy. So HQ is the same, the heady option mix of Cromwell 75mm and Cromwell CS remains, all well and good, but then we get to the Cromwell Armoured Troop and things get a little exotic. In these main Cromwell Armoured Troops you have no less than 6 options for composition. That is 3 with varying numbers of Challenger and Cromwells, or varying numbers of Cromwell and late war 17-pounder Fireflies. The Firefly, for the uninitiated, is an upgunned Sherman and has the exact same stats as the Challenger, but is a little slower with a slightly higher cross-check. And in practice, adding Fireflies to your Cromwell troop over the Challenger saves you 1 point per troop. Everything else, armour, ranges, AT, firepower, is the same. Simple as that. So maybe with a little pack of Dingoes you can offset your slower Fireflies, get them further up the board and save a few points, maybe? A minimum sized formation with no CSs in the HQ, Fireflies and Stuarts will come in at 32 points, so it's pretty cheap and gets you an AT-15 shot and leaves you plenty of points for more toys. Next we have the Guards Sherman Armoured Squadron, with pretty much the same black and grey boxes as we saw above, but someone forgot to pack the Dingoes. So you Sherman boys don't get the fun deployment shenanigans for cheap. It's Stuarts for you, or nothing if you want to do that. Unless you get spearheads somewhere else, which you totally can, and we'll come back to that later when we talk about support options. The Sherman HQ is much the same as the Cromwell, same stats, but the protected ammo bonus is gone as you're remounting on a 4+, and there's not an option for the Cromwell CS. The Guards Sherman troops are a cocktail of 75mm Shermans and the Firefly we saw before. The Firefly, interestingly, does have protected ammo, so it's just the standard 75mm Shermans that Battlefront hate. However, there is one new feature of these lads which you may have noticed. For 1 point, you can equip all of your Shermans and Fireflies in a troop with tulip rockets. These are a one-use saturation bombardment artillery attack, where saturation means you counter-firing twice the number of artillery pieces in the attack, which is nuts. They only have a 20-inch range, 81, but with a 2+ firepower. They could be a real deterrent to infantry getting too close to your Shermans and a nasty strike to whip out when the enemy least expects it. Minimum size for this formation comes in at 29 points with our trusty Stuarts for 8 tanks in total. Next up, the Ram Armoured Squadron appears. This formation is fairly straightforward. You choose the Ram Armoured Squadron, so Rams you shall take, sir. Rams by the bucket load. Just to ram the point home, your black box options are all Rams, so there you go. Ram. Outside the black boxes, you can take up to 3 more Rams or swap out 1 for a Firefly troop. Get some Stuarts in for Spearhead, or the Crusader AA is there should you feel the need. But let's take a look at these Rams. For your abilities based on dice rolls, they're pretty good, being 4+ on motivation, hit on and skill, but with a bonkers remount of 2+ and a cross check of 3+. Move is pretty Sherman-like, with a 10-inch tactical move, 12-inch terrain dash, 18-inch cross-country, and 20 inches on the road. A 6 front armour and 5 on the side is very nice though. The 6-pounder gun is also not bad, with a 28-inch range, 2 shots halted, 1 shot moving, and AT-11. They will poke holes in medium armour, but the 4+ firepower isn't ideal. The MGs are the same 4 that we've seen everywhere else. Interestingly, the Firefly troops are pure Firefly affairs, no 75mm Shermans in there, and have the same 2+ protected ammo remount of the rest of the Rams, which is very nice. The minimum size for this formation is 32 points for 8 Rams, which is not the worst idea I've heard all day, to be honest. I think the Rams are an interesting medium tank and provide a relatively cheap option if you're not facing anything too heavy. Skipping ahead a little in the book, we have our last armoured option with the exotic Guards Churchill Armoured Squadron. Looking at the formation, you'll notice 3 things. 1, you have to really like Churchills to take this, like a lot. You can take up to 5 Churchill armoured troops plus the HQ. 2, the spearheading Stuarts and Crusader AA troops are there again. 3, you can take a Panther. Yes, that type of Panther. This Panther is based on the historical event where the Coldstream Guards captured a working Panther G in November 1944 outside Overloon in the Netherlands. This tank stayed as one of their HQ vehicles until early 1945 when the fuel pump broke and there weren't really spares around to pick up a replacement. But more on this tank, called Cuckoo, in a minute. First, to the main events, the Churchills. In your HQ, you may take 3 different types, but they all share the same stats: motivation, hit on and skill of 4+, remount and counterattack of 3+. They're not the fastest, with 8-inch tactical, 10-inch terrain, with a 14-inch cross-country and road dash, but they do cross on a 2+. Armour is 8 from the side, and from the front is 9 for CS and 11 for 75mm variants. To the gun. The CS has a 48-inch artillery attack with smoke bombardment, or direct fire with brutal slow firing and smoke with 88 and 2+ firepower with a 24-inch range. If you take the 75mm version, there's no artillery, but smoke stays, 80 becomes 10, firepower is 3+, and range is 28 inches. Both options have a standard 4 mg shots per tank. In each Churchill troop, you can take either 3 75mm Churchills with the same stats as above, or 2 75mm and a single 6-pounder with AT-11 and 4+ firepower. Again, the 75mm has front armour 11 and the 6-pounder has front armour 9. You're going to be referring to your stat sheets a lot when you start playing these. Should you decide to take the Cuckoo, then you will spend 11 of your precious points on a single Panther with 4+ stats across the board, 2+ cross-check, front armour 9, side armour 5, 10-inch tactical speed, up to 24 inches on the road, and a 40-inch range, 80-14, 3+ firepower, 7.5cm gun with 4 mg shots. Is Cuckoo worth taking? It just might be to see your enemy shock and awe as a Panther arrives on the table. The Churchills are not cheap, with a minimum points value of 42 points for 7 tanks. Are they worth it? If you know you're facing medium tanks and lighter, sure, but against the big stuff, they might just be that bad combination of just too slow to get in the side shots that they need to make the kills, with the low AT to stop them penetrating the front armour of the big cats. Maybe. But then they're Churchills. And the rule of cool is really strong to just be discounted because they're made for comfort, not speed. And now we step away from the heavy lads and onto the infantry. If you prefer boots on the ground to the roar of engines, the 4 infantry options in Bulge British could not be more different. But let's start with the Motor Battalion of the 11th Armoured Division, also known as the Black Bull Motor Company. These guys are motorised infantry with some fairly impressive support choices. The black box options include the HQ, 2 motor platoons plus a universal carrier platoon, unusually giving you 4 compulsory choices in this formation. For support options we have more infantry, all the universal carrier patrols plus 2 anti-tank platoons, a machine gun platoon and a mortar platoon. The infantry are reasonable but let down a little by their rally value. So, good news first. Hit on 4+. 4+ is also there for motivation and skill. Counterattack and assault are 3+, so these guys are hungry for blood. But with 5+ rally, if these guys start to run, more often than not they're going to keep going. The main platoons come in a range of sizes, but feature a 2-inch mortar with smoke and a Piat anti-tank team in every platoon. This gives these guys a range of uses and tactical options beyond sit on objective and don't die. All of these can take M5 half-tracks and upgrade these to have a 50 cal machine gun as well, giving them some mobility and teeth. M5s share the same hit-on value as the infantry, but are motivated on 5+ and assault and counterattack on a 6. With no real armour, the main benefit of these guys is the extra speed, with a top speed of 32 inches on road, and the extra machine gun, which can be used as self-defense AA. Though good luck finding actual miniatures from Battlefront on that one. The universal carriers are cheap mobile routes to get an extra set of MGs on the board, along with optional Piat anti-tank bolt-ons for an extra point. Crucially, these also have spearhead and starting at 2 points, so there's another great way to get up the board in deployment. If you're feeling daring, you can take a patrol of Wasp carriers. These are universal carriers who left the MG at home and brought a flamethrower instead. Though short range, they are devastating against infantry, especially with their speed, but at twice the price of the universal carriers and losing the spearhead rule, they do have a very different job, namely roasting infantry and light vehicles. It's a similar case with the MMG carrier. You sacrifice the spearhead for more firepower. In the MMG's case, you get 6 shots when static rather than the 3 that you'll see on a normal carrier, plus a 24-inch range rather than the 16 of the standard carrier. These guys also get the bonkers ability to fire a 48-inch bombardment. Though it is historically accurate that British troops did make effectively bombardment attacks with this type of weapon, it will never not be funny. If mobility isn't your thing, you can take mortar platoons or Vickers machine gun platoons too. Either gets you more boots on the ground, but with some nice firepower. The mortars having the option to lob smoke bombardments downfield is always useful, and with a not unreasonable points cost, they're worth having around. The Vickers is the MMG carrier without the carrier, bringing the same weapon ability, yes, the artillery shot, without the speed of the carriers. The benefit? The infantry saves and a bump on counterattack. The last platoon in this formation is the anti-tank option, the motor 6-pounder anti-tank platoon. If you know Flames of War, the stats here won't be a shock. Slow movement of 2 inches up to 4 inches if you dash, and a 5+ cross-check with poor assaults, which are offset by the 3+ gun crew save and the 28-inch range, 3 shots when halted, 80-11 and 4+ firepower goodness of the gun. If you want to go pure infantry, you'll be needing some of these guys to give yourself some anti-armour for sure. Taking this formation as a minimum size with the 4 black boxes comes in at 14 points minimum, which would net you 12 infantry stands and 3 universal carriers. As a core, if immobile infantry formation, this isn't too shabby, especially as there are mortars and Piat anti-tank included in that price. Bounce and interview next is the Kangaroo Rifle Company. Now, you might think this formation is all cork hats and amber nectar, but you'd be wrong. This infantry shares much with the Black Bull Motor Company, as you'll see in a moment, but they differ in formation composition and platoon size. This is a much more mobile and larger formation as a whole. The black box options are all infantry all the time. Moving to the optional platoons, one of the 6-pounder AT guns from the Black Bulls is gone in favour of more MMG carriers or Vickers, and there's an extra universal carrier or Wasp patrol in case you really need to set fire to everything. Moving into the platoons themselves, the first point to note is that the infantry platoons are larger, going from a maximum size of 6 infantry teams in the Black Bull Motor Company to 9 here. Yes, that pushes the points up, but it does increase your durability. Stat-wise, these are the same: hit on 4+, 4+ motivation and skill, 3+ assault and counterattack, with that pesky 5+ motivation. The weapons have also changed, with the main teams having a Bren and SMLE mix, which reduces their shots from 3 halted, 2 moving in the Black Bull to 2 halted, 1 moving here. Not ideal. So why would you take them? Well, that would be the option to take the Ram Kangaroo. This little bundle of fun is a Canadian-made transport which gives your infantry a pretty quick armoured overcoat to charge across the board in. If it looks a little like the M3 Lee, that would make sense, as the Ram was a tank based on the Lee, and the Kangaroo Ram was a Ram with the turret taken off. Keeping up so far? Good. The Kangaroo Ram has the same hit-on of 4+, 4+ skill of the infantry, but with a 5+ motivation, 6s for assault and counterattack. However, then the fun starts. With 6 front armour and 5 on the side, the Kangaroo can bounce small arms and even smaller guns. Carrying 3 passengers, it also has close assault, so your infantry can charge out of the vehicle directly into combat in the assault step. These bad boys also have a 3+ cross-check and zip along at 18 inches on cross-country dash, so they're really going to help your infantry's mobility, getting them up the field to capture those objectives if you're on the offensive. Speaking of offensive, each Ram Kangaroo brings a rate of fire 3 16-inch MG to the table too. Not a bad bonus. Coming in at 2 points for 3, they're not going to break the bank either. Looking at the rest of the formation, there's a similar mix of universal carriers and Wasp carriers with the flamethrowers. One of the 6-pounder anti-tank platoons is swapped out, as previously mentioned, for another set of Vickers machine guns or MMG carrier platoons. Speaking of the 6-pounders, the Kangaroo Company anti-tank platoons lose the 5+ rally and get the option of having up to 6 guns in a platoon, rather than 4, which was the maximum in the Black Bull Company equivalent. So much as you lose one 6-pounder platoon, you get to have a much bigger single platoon. Is that good? Minimum sized without their Kangaroos, you're looking at 16 points for the basic formation or 21 points with Kangaroos. That's not bad for a bit of speed and protection on fairly reasonable infantry. Dropping in as the third infantry company is Frost's Parachute Company. This company is one of the market garden options, representing the men of the 2nd Battalion Parachute Regiment who dropped into the Netherlands on the 17th of September 1944. Their mission was to secure a railway bridge and pontoon bridge in the Dutch town of Arnhem. Formation is, as you'd expect from Paras, infantry focused with some lighter anti-tank and lighter artillery support. The black boxes include the HQ, one standard parachute platoon, then either an extra parachute or an engineer platoon. You're then into support options, which includes more paras, the option to take a flight of glider pilots, more on those in a minute, a Vickers MG, 3-inch mortar, 2 troops of 75mm light artillery, the ubiquitous 6-pounder anti-tank gun section, then a nice option to either take a recce patrol with jeeps or another parachute platoon. Getting into the stats, Frost's men are a sturdy bunch. With a stiff upper lip, freshly starched, they're head on 4+, motivation is 3+, with last stand an impressive 2+, skill checks are on 4+, and they're deadly in assault 3+. Weapon-wise, the standard platoon are packing much the same as the Kangaroo rifle platoon, albeit without the 2-inch mortar. So the 16-inch range, rate of fire 2 when halted, with a Piat anti-tank team in there as well. The engineers are bringing the same, but have one less team in a troop and gain the Pioneers skill, which lets you cross minefields at a 2+, and if they choose to stay in the minefield, they remove automatically the next turn. If you plan to be on the attack, these lads may not be a bad choice. The Vickers MMG platoons are Fearless 3+ motivation with the 4+ skill check and Assault on a 5+. The mortars are 3+ motivation, 3+ skill. Those are some experienced mortars right there, and Assault on a 4+. You know that swinging a mortar around your head and smacking somebody with it could be so effective. Oh. When it comes to anti-tank, the Paras are understandably a little light, with their single 6-pounder section only having 1 or 2 guns. But they're a reliable bunch, hit on 4+, motivated on 3+, with a 4+ skill, but only 5+ assault, as you'd expect. Sticking with the bigger guns for a minute, the 75mm light artillery troops are an expensive but punchy option. Hit on 4+, motivated on 3+, but with the tasty 3+ skill and 4+ assault, they're a solid choice. The 75mm can fire as artillery with a 64-inch range, anti-tank of 2, 4+ firepower, and option to fire a smoke bombardment. In direct firepower, they lack punch for anything more intense than transports or light tanks. Their anti-tank of 6 isn't going to worry most medium or heavy tanks unless you catch them in the side or back. But you can smoke with direct fire, so you can at least slow down the output of bigger guns if you need to. These guys also have the Mike target skill, so if a spotter ranges in a target for this troop, they may immediately try to range in a different artillery unit. If they succeed again, then the second unit is treated as ranging in at the same attempt as the first. If you're new to the game, don't worry about that, it's just useful. Last but not least, we have the Jeep Airborne Recce Troop support option. Veteran Scouts, these chaps are hit on 4+, motivate on 3+, but have a 4+ last stand and a 3+ veteran skill. Quick around the table, they have a bonkers 48-inch move for road dash, but only cross on a 4+, so be careful where you drive them. Weaponry rise, these guys put out 3 shots at 16 inches, whether you move or not. The Jeep is a fantastic way to get your troops deployed more aggressively using their spearhead skill, and an interesting way to harass infantry for a few points. With a troop size of 2, 4, 8, they can actually put quite a lot of firepower into the mix if you max out your platoon. Minimum sized, this para formation comes in at a reasonable 17 points for some fairly impressive infantry, albeit in a formation which lacks transport and heavy guns. For our final formation in the book, we're into an oddity for Operation Market Garden. Well, technically Operation Market, but anyway. It's an entire formation made up of pilots. That's right, it's the mighty Glider Pilot Squadron. The formation is fairly straightforward. Black box options are an HQ with 2 flights of glider pilots. Then, if you want to add more pilots to your pilots, you can take up to 3 additional flights of pilots for your pilots in this pilot squadron. Let's get into the stats then. Hit on 4+, motivation and skill are both 3+, making these a reliable unit. You may then add a mortar team for 1 point per flight, and up to 2 Piat teams for a point each. Their weapons are the same as the Paras, minus the Piat, so 2 shots halted with a 16-inch range, anti-tank 2 and a firepower of 6. These lads bring some MRC body armour to the table, which gives an extra roll if they fail their save after being hit by artillery, and on a 5+, even if they failed their save, they still shrug their artillery hit. Not bad. And that's pretty much it. The minimum size formation of glider pilots will set you back 19 points, which is pretty steep, especially as that's only for 12 teams in total. And that's it for our core formations. After that, we're into sport units, and there's plenty here, so here are some of our favourites just for you. If you're not running the Paras but fancy some Jeeps, then the SAS section is just for you. Featuring the same great key stats, spearhead and scout special rules, For only 3 points, you can get 3 Jeeps with the same great deployment shenanigans mentioned before. The SAS can also add in a single 0.5-inch MG for a point. This gives some AA cover and also an AT4 5+ firepower set of shots. If that doesn't tickle your pickle, then you can upgrade all Jeeps to have the AA MG, which gives you defensive AA for a single point as well. Or you can do both, or neither. Either way, it's the SAS in Jeeps. How is that not cool? There aren't enough tank destroyers in the world with a gun so chunky that it has to be put on backwards. Don't believe me? Well, thankfully, there is the Archer, which proves my point beautifully. Based on the Valentine light tank, this chap only has armor 2 all round with 0 on top. Then it has core stats of 4+ for hit on, motivation and skill, but 6s for assault and counterattack with a cross check of 3+. So far, not so impressive. But the Archer packs a rear-facing 17-pounder with a 36-inch range, 2 shots, but only when stationary. This can't be shot on the move. With AT-15 and a 3+ firepower. That gun is no joke. Lacking high explosive shells, with a rear-facing gun and no MGs, the Archer is a one-trick pony, but what a trick. Coming at 9 points for a troop of 2 or 18 points for a troop of 4, you want to be careful with them in game though. But they are true ambush hunters and will have fun if that's how you use them. Now everyone loves a barbecue and Brits are no exception, hence the Churchill Crocodile Flame Tank, also known as a troop of Churchill tanks with their usual 75mm AT-10 gun, front armour 11, 4+ stats, bar assault and remount, the latter being 3+, and a hull-mounted flamethrower. Yes, it is only a 6-inch range. Yes, it only has 82, but with rate of fire 6, even when moving, and auto firepower, a platoon of Crocs will make short work of infantry. Plus, with the flamethrower rule, infantry, gun, and unarmoured tanks reroll successful saves, are automatically pinned down, and armoured team use their top armour value. So you can actually do some damage to armour, especially with that auto firepower. But for 7 points per tank, these bad boys are not cheap. It being nearly November, this being Bulge British, it seems fitting that our last pick should be something which looks like a hoofing great firework. The beautifully named Land Mattress. As a bonkers artillery piece, we're not here for the stats though. They are nice with hit on 4+, 4+ save, motivation of 3+, 3+ skill, ignoring the assault stuff which is horrific as you would expect from artillery. What we're here for is when things start going bang, specifically the enemy, a lot. The Land Mattress has a 64-inch range, 82 firepower, 4+ salvo attack, which comes with saturation bombardment. In game, this means that you're firing a 10-inch template, not the normal 6, and that your troop counts as having twice the number of launchers in as it actually does. Why is this important? Well, if you only have 1 or 2 weapons firing an artillery barrage, then you have to re-roll successful hits. As Land Mattress comes in troops of 2 or 4, the saturation bombardment skill means that these count as twice the size. So even only firing the minimum size troop of 2 launchers, they'll count as 4, so you don't have to re-roll hits. Also, if you have more than 5 weapons firing a barrage, then you can re-roll misses. So the maximum size troop of 4 counts as 8, which means that you're going to be raining a whole load of hellish fiery death on your enemies and then re-rolling it. Not bad, eh? That said, with 2 launches coming at 8 points and 4 at, you'll never guess, 16 points, these aren't the cheapest mattresses you could buy for your troops. Aside from that bag of expensive mischief, you'll find the usual mix of increased artillery, Typhoon fighter bombers, some heavier artillery options, and the weird and wonderful things like the Avery, but we'll let you find those out when you get the book for yourself. The rest of the book includes a suggested force, which is a little too unfocused for our taste, painting guides, info on how to base your troops, this is really useful for newbies, details of the new starter set for this book, a set of missions with special rules, and the option to make a linked campaign. The last few pages of the book are, as ever, a look at all the miniature sets which are available for the British in this book, i.e. a great way to get poorer really quickly, but they are oh so pretty nonetheless. So is this book any good? Yes it is. There's some great units and unique options in here, real flavour, variety, you can make all types of lists, from fun to competitive. If there is one criticism, it's that the starter and suggested force is a mismatch of units which, to our knowledge, didn't historically fight together. Now, is that an issue? No, but it leans into the move that Flames of War has taken since the previous edition, away from historical accuracy being a line that Battlefront wouldn't step over. Now, to be clear, we're absolutely fine with it. We play Flames of War with a more casual eye on things, so it's fine for what we want. But if you're looking for a robust, historically precise Bulge British book, you're going to have to ignore certain parts of this book, not least the Market Garden stuff, or you will find yourself with a real itchy brain of frustration and annoyance. But for the more casual player, this book is great and has a wealth of interesting and exciting ways to play the very late war British forces. That applies for both new and experienced players. For the newbies, there are some fairly flexible and forgiving formations which fit together nicely and create well-rounded lists. For the hardcore wargamers out there, there are more challenging finesse formations which will need carefully selecting support options to win the day. In fact, British Bulge is so good that the Dice Gods will be doing a series where we plan, build, paint and play a British force from this book. So if you're taking the dive into Flames of War with Bulge British, look out for the videos coming out in the coming weeks. And keep us up to date with how your forces are coming along on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit or Instagram. Links are in the description below. For now, we hope you enjoyed our review of Bulge British. Thanks again to tabletopper.nl for supporting the channel. If you're keen to support us, then please like, subscribe and hit the bell to keep up with our latest adventures, or if you're really kind, check out our Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, we have our first Patreon already, so much love to Joe Rogers for being the first to join our Patreon, but also for his unwavering support and encouragement since the Dice Gods began. That's it for our Bulge review. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.